Welcome. We are so glad you joined us for our St. Patrick's Day edition of Native Plants at Noon. I'm Tammy Thompson, the Outreach and Conference Manager for Deep Roots. And as you all know, this is one of my favorite days of the month, and I'm so excited that you have decided to join us. I look forward to seeing you all the rest of the months of 2022 as we continue to unpack the benefits and beauty of native plants and the amazing creatures that they support. Next month, we will be taking Native Plants at Noon on the road. We will be visiting the Missouri Department of Conservation's Big Buffalo Creek Conservation Area in East Central Benton County, Missouri. We hope to see you there on our virtual tour of the spring ephemerals, and there's a big claim to fame on this area called the Big Buffalo Creek Fen Natural Area, spelled F-E-N. If you don't know what a fen is, please look it up. They are amazing. And then in May, we will be back at the Anita B. Gorman Discovery Center with Alix and Cydney. So anyway, we're looking forward to this virtual road trip down to the Big Buffalo Creek Conservation Area, and we hope you join us next month to do that. Today, Alix and Cydney are going to talk about native edibles. And I thought we were just going to be talking about them, but they have quite a show for you. There's so much to learn about what we can and cannot eat in our native gardens, but also how we can just use really unusual ingredients to make really common dishes. And I think you're going to be so happy to be tuned in today. I was just stunned at the work they've done behind the scenes for this one. So during the program, if you have questions, please note those either in the Facebook comments or in the Q&A tool in Zoom, and we will get to as many of those as we can. I'll be using the chat to send you the plants that are mentioned, any links that Alix and Cydney share. So anyway, let's get started. First, we want to express a huge thank you to the Missouri Department of Conservation for their partnership on this series and everything they do to help encourage and empower people to not only plant more native plants, but also to enjoy the conservation areas and the nature areas of Missouri. So thank you very much to the Missouri Department of Conservation. With that, I'd like to welcome landscape specialists Cydney Ross and Alix Daniel at the Anita B. Gorman Discovery Center. Cydney and Alix, take it away.
Hello. Welcome everybody. Hi. This is Alix Daniel.
This is Cydney Ross.
And we're the Native Landscape Specialists here at the Discovery Center. And boy, do we have a show for you today.
Yes. We're going to be talking about one of our favorite things, what to eat out in your yard.
Exactly. Y'all like to eat, right?
Yeah.
And y'all like to eat things that taste good. Well, did you know there's a ton of plants in your own backyards that are edible, right for the picking? And with spring finally here, or so it seems, we have come up with kind of an exciting program where we're going to identify some of these, what some people call weedy species. They're typically really small ground cover like plants, but we're going to ID them and then talk about how you can eat them or just enjoy them in general. So
yeah, so let's get started. We have most of these plants we harvested from here at the Discovery Center, and they are plants that do show up in beds where there's any space at all given. These are very prolific plants that put out a lot of seeds, but some of them are not native and some of them are native and some are naturalized. We'll talk a little bit about that too. So which one should we start with?
Ooh, well, how about we start with the ones that have some flowers on them, because I don't know about y'all, but I'm really excited to see flowers, even if they're diminutive and teeny tiny. So
that's so beautiful. Do you want to talk about these two?
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to hold these up to the camera for a second.
See if
have you noticed these little pink and dark pink flowers that have started blooming? Well, they look really similar and they are in the same family, but they're two entirely different plants. So Alix knows a lot more about wild edibles than I do. So I'm really excited because I'm going to learn a ton in this episode too.
Yeah. And I'll make for treats.
Yay.
So Yeah, so these are both plants in the Lamiaceae family. They're in the mint family, so they both have square stems. And most plants that you find that have square stems are going to be mint and are going to be edible. Now, I want to preface all of this by saying that when you're harvesting plants, first of all, make sure that your idea is 100% correct. And there are several ways you can do that. We're going to recommend some great books. There are apps you can use. There are wonderful Facebook groups and other websites and Instagram accounts.
yeah,
Awesome.
also a lot of our nature centers have wild edible programs throughout the year. I know Alex is talking about leading a mushroom foyer at some point or a mushroom ID class. So definitely check that out through MDC's website. See if any nature centers around you are hosting these programs.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So what do we have here?
So I guess to what I was mentioning with that is that if there are some rules of thumb when it comes to wild edibles that you can pretty much follow. So like one of them is square stem equals mint, and these are both in the mint family.
But no, it doesn't smell like mint. So let's talk about that a little bit. It is
not
fragrant.
all mints in the mint. Not all plants in the mint family smell minty. Yeah, but it does look a lot like mint.
Yeah.
So they're very similar looking plants, and they can be used interchangeably.
Well, and what is this plant?
So that one is purple dead nettle. That one has a darker, no, I'm sorry. I just did the wrong one. That one is Henbit. This is Henbit. It has a darker and more scalloped leaf on the top. The leaf is scalloped. And then this one is purple dead nettle or red dead nettle. And it has a more pointed leaf.
Yeah.
They look really similar. You can basically use them exactly the same way. So don't worry about it if you get those two mixed up.
Yeah, so what I'm noticing with the purple dead nettle is both of these leaves are really textured, like deep textures, but purple dead nettle, it has more of a heart-shaped leaf and like a pointed tip. And then henbit is more scalloped and it has frillier leaves is how I would describe it.
Frillier for sure.
Cool.
And with some of these common names, there's great stories. Henbit is one that you see hens going after it. I guess. And I know the chickens at my yard love it. So.
Yes. So how would you eat this?
Okay, so those two are kind of like a got kind of a spinachy flavor to them. I like to blanch them, and so what we did today, we made a pesto, and we made a big jar of pesto and a pizza out of all of these greens. We did kind of like a kitchen sink, like mix of everything from the garden to make this pesto.
And I will say we do not have a recipe, so we are more chefs than bakers.
Yes, that's the fun part though. It's like whatever's available, just throw it together.
Sub it out for like if you make pesto with like basil, right? Then you're gonna sub out the basil leaves for these wild edible leaves that you're collecting.
Yeah. And we'll talk about the flavors and everything what they add. Yeah. So these don't have a really, really strong taste, but so I do blanch them because the texture is a little fuzzy. Not a great fresh eating, although you can eat it fresh. The flowers you can eat fresh, and they're really sweet and delicious, and you can top things with stuff. Yeah.
So later when we demo our pizza, show you all what we made, we're gonna sprinkle some of those flowers on top as a garnish. Another flower that will be blooming soon are our red bud trees, and they also have tiny pink flowers. And those are edible too. So
yeah,
they're
and
not
violets. We looked for violets for this today, but not quite yet. So violets are another one, edible flower. Yeah, that's really adds.
And dandelions. I really want to eat dandelions, but you'll have to follow us on our social media or something. Yeah, we'll have to do another part 2.
Speaking of that, we're getting you ready for what's about to bloom, because we did look and we couldn't find any dandelions that were blooming, and I think it's hilarious. Have y'all ever seen one of these before? Have you ever seen a dandelion before?
Have you ever seen one in a pot before?
Have you ever seen one well taken care of? We dug it out of the ground yesterday, just to show you, just in case any of you didn't know.
Yeah.
But, all parts of the dandelion plant are edible.
Okay.
The leaves are edible. They're really, really sour or bitter, and which means that they're really nutritious.
Yeah.
All of the plants we're talking about today are really high in nutrition, antioxidants, all the things you need. Vitamins.
So
dandelion especially though, very, very high in nutrition.
Okay.
And we're no doctors, but do your research, especially if you're using plants for medicine, which this is another one.
We know nothing about that.
We know nothing.
I will say real quick, there are several Instagram accounts that we follow that do a great job educating the public on wild edibles. Alexis Nicole, who is known as Black Forager on social media. She is wonderful, and she recently posted how you can take dandelion buds before they pop up and turn them into quick pickled capers. So I really want to try that.
We're doing that this year.
We are gonna
I
do
love dandelion flowers. If you fry them, if you bread them and
Ugh.
fry them, they taste like fried mushrooms.
I
It's
want
crazy.
it. That
It's
sounds
crazy.
so good.
Yeah, but the leaves you can use as a grain too. They add a bit of a bitter flavor, so just keep that in mind when you're cooking with that. The roots, the roots are really big too. You can roast them and turn them into like a coffee substitute kind of.
Oh,
It's like a tea.
interesting.
It's dandelion tea. That's really
Oh,
good too.
Nice.
So all parts edible, not native, naturalized though.
Yeah.
Everyone has them. They're fine. Don't worry. Don't stop killing them. Don't kill them.
Yeah, they're so I keep using the word diminutive, but what I mean to say is they're small. They're not so aggressive that they're going to take things out. I know someone who has a hard time leaving violets in their yard, but really it's acting as a ground cover. If you don't put a plant there, another plant, whether you consider it a weed or not, is going to show up. So kind of think about that too in your garden space.
Yeah. Oh, not just that's another thing too. We could talk about these that are perennial and annuals, because a lot of weedy species are annuals, which means that they make seed, that plant dies, and then the new plant next year comes just from seed. But a lot of them are perennials, like the dandelion is perennial. So if you have one in a bed, it's going to bloom for years and years and years. So if you have a really formal bed, sure, take your dandelions out, but
Right.
just stop spraying them randomly in your yard. You
Yeah.
know, that's all we're asking.
Just mow over it
Just
if you
mow
need
them.
to.
They're
Yeah.
fine.
All right. What
Anyway,
else do we have?
We could talk for so
I know,
long.
forever.
By the way, this is just a taste of wild edibles. This is just spring. This is just
This is just
week.
the cusp
this
of
week.
spring, not even
Yes,
full spring.
next week, morels.
Yeah.
The next week, okay, so this one is a native plant. This one is Monarda. This is bee balm or wild bergamot.
Monarda fistulosa, I think so. So it kind of has like purple under leaves. So this is like a fresh baby that just popped up next to its parent. And it has also heart-shaped leaves that are scalloped or serrated rather, undersized purple. It's also in the mint family.
Yeah, so what how do you know?
Ooh,
How do you know
okay.
it's in the mint?
I know it's in the mint family because it has square stem.
There you go.
Also, if you crush this leaf, it smells like oregano. So that would be a great substitute for
Yeah.
to use this plant also. And
Yeah,
it spreads really prolifically too. So that could be a good way to keep it in check is eat it.
Yes, it's a really great pollinator plant. It's one that we do plant with caution. We tell people just make sure you give it the space that it needs. It's a really big plant and it takes over and kind of works as a monoculture. So know the right plant, right place.
Yeah, there's also other Monarda species like spotted bee balm and Monarda bradburyana, which is a shorter one that can handle a little bit more shade. So yeah, right plant, right place. We preach it all the time. Do your research. And you won't be upset about it.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Or you'll get weeds and you can eat them. So,
Ooh, this one's cute. It's kind of like it's slightly succulent-y.
doesn't
Like,
it?
it's not fuzzy like
It's really,
the other ones.
it's funny because we dug these up, we just potted them up so nicely. Now they look like house plants. They're all wigs.
I'm gonna put this in a terrarium. Now what is
Yeah.
this?
Okay, so this one is called chickweed.
Oh, cute.
And it is one of my favorites. It is one that you can definitely eat raw. You can eat it like a salad green. This one's pretty small. They get much bigger. And sometimes you get lucky and get into a patch where the leaves are like extra huge.
You can eat it raw?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell me, what do you think? This is your first time maybe tasting this one? Yeah. What do you think? Lettucey? Yeah.
Definitely has that green, like I don't want to say grassy, but it is a little grassy.
It's a little grassy.
It's not bad though.
Yeah. For a green, for a salad green, I think this is the closest thing we get to like having something that's really abundant.
This is actually really good. It would be nice mixed into other salad greens too.
Yes, definitely.
Yummy.
Yeah. Later in the season, we'll be making salads out of all this stuff for sure. So,
All right.
next, how about this one?
Let's do this one and then we'll do
Yeah,
our
will you do
invasives.
this? Yeah.
Okay, so y'all have seen these. This is one of the first plants I remember from my childhood because I would go out in the yard and eat the greens off it.
Is that where the tops went?
Maybe. Any guesses on what this is? Well, I'm just gonna tell you. It is wild garlic. So we have wild garlic and wild onion. They are naturalized. They're not, these particular ones are not native also. But we do have native garlic like nodding onion, and then meadow garlic. Those are two Missouri native garlic species, but this is one that you'll find popping up in your yard. And this is a big one. This one's
like
probably a couple years old.
one or something.
Look at that. So now, how do you tell the difference between, say, this plant
Oh boy, they look very
and
similar.
this plant? You'll see
Very
that.
similar.
Here, I'm gonna hold this. So
Look at them.
they both have bulbs. They both have green, straight looking foliage coming up.
They're both up right now.
They're both up right now. They both kind of cluster. I will say this one clusters more. And but what I do notice, one smells like onion and the other doesn't. Okay, so this one here is non-native, very aggressive, probably becoming invasive, Star of Bethlehem.
And toxic, don't forget.
Very toxic. So what's the rule you were telling me the other day about how to ID or know the difference between these two plants?
Yes. Okay. So the onions are always going to have a round stem and they're always going to smell like onion and garlic. Now a plant this has a bulb, but the leaf, the stem is flat-ish, not that flat, kind of flat.
Yeah.
Flat, or it's not round. And it also has a white mid vein or lighter colored mid vein in the middle. I don't know if y'all can see that, but it's lighter on the inside, on the middle of the leaf.
Yeah, it's funny.
And it
too.
does not smell anything. That's the most important thing. It does not smell like onion or garlic. So if you find something that has a round stem but doesn't smell like onion or garlic, not onion or garlic.
Yeah.
So don't eat that.
And you know, I've seen Star of Bethlehem take over garden beds, and yeah, so you'll see that coming up this time of year. It spreads like crazy. It does die back. The foliage dies back, but the bulbs persist and they keep spreading.
And they're really hard to get out.
Yeah, you get to dig like pretty deep, and if you accidentally chop them in half, then I feel like it's like a hydra from Greek mythology. It's just going to spread even more.
Just made a new one.
Okay, so we've got one more that we want to show you all before we take questions and show you some resources.
Yeah. So one thing we like to talk about all the time is how to different ways, different creative ways and culinary ways to remove non-native invasives from our wild areas. And this plant is my favorite non-native invasive. That's a weird thing that I've never
No
said.
such
It's
thing.
my favorite. The worst. This one is garlic mustard.
All right.
Y'all have probably heard of this.
It looks so much like Creeping Charlie.
It looks like Creeping Charlie. It looks like violets. It looks like, I kind of think it looks like Henbit. There's a lot of
Huge, though.
similarities.
Look how big
in
this
the-
is.
Yeah, it is huge.
So, okay, I'm gonna break off a leaf because you say it's called garlic mustard,
yeah,
right?
yes, it is.
Which I know I'm
and can you guess
slightly
what it's
familiar
gonna
with it.
taste like?
I'm guessing it's gonna taste garlicky mustardy.
Yeah, it is. So you can eat the
Ooh, it smells
leaves.
good.
It's good, right?
Yeah.
You can eat the leaves. You can eat the roots. Should we pull it out?
Yeah, let's
Kind of show.
make a mess.
Yeah, make a mess. Oh, that's a nice one. Okay, so the root you can use like a horseradish substitute. You can, what we did for the recipe that we made today was we roasted them for a little while to get the bitterness out. And if you get a big one, they got a nice chunky taproot that makes it worth it, how much cleaning you have to do of them. But that's what you want to do with garlic mustard. So with some of these species where you might want to be keeping the actual plant itself alive and just taking some of the top off, you can just nip the tops off. That's better anyway, because then you're not pulling all the dirt out, disturbing the soil, getting your basket all dirty. But with garlic mustard, please pull the whole root out.
The whole
if you can.
root.
And they're pretty easy to pull with like a little, use a little 5-point scraper. Or I do to
That's a
get
pro
like
tip
rooted.
right there.
Yeah, 5-point paint scraper gets right under the roots, and that works for dandelions, works for garlic mustard and whatever else. The wild onions, it works. Yeah, that's my thing. That's
It's such a
my
great tool.
trusty tool. But whatever your favorite garden.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, I'm sure most of you tuning in know what a non-native invasive plant is, but it's not native here to North America or whatever region you're talking about. And it causes environmental and economic damage. So this plant will take over your natural areas, and you want to try to get to it before it goes to flower. because once it flowers, it's just going to spread a ton of seeds everywhere. And I think I've heard
biennial, right?
It is I believe it's a biennial,
right.
so it's going to have
it lives for 2 years and then dies off.
Right. So they're bad. So dig them up this spring if you see them.
They're so good.
But make sure that I actually got confused. It's been a while since I've seen plants, I'll admit, because it's it's been a long, short winter, but
long.
but it does look a lot like some other plants. But Creeping Charlie is more of a vine crawling ground cover, and it has typically smaller leaves.
Literally creeping.
It's literally creeping.
It's so
creepy. And Creeping Charlie, is that also in the mint family?
Yes, and it's also edible. So it's my enemy. So
I don't think it smells very good.
Yeah, it has a really, really strong flavor. Y'all probably have Creeping Charlie in your yards too. Yeah. So you can eat it. It's not
pungent.
It's not my favorite flavor. Some people dry it and use it to make a spice later. I'd like to try that this year and see if that works better. So. But one thing I do want to mention really quick before, just because I don't think I mentioned it before, when you're foraging, obviously, we're talking sort of about weeds that you can find in your yard. But if you're going out to areas, like we got a few of these ingredients from a wild area, you don't want to take too much. You don't want to do damage. You want to make sure you're staying within the rules of whatever park you're at. And that information can usually be found on the website. For that park. And then you also, most important thing, want to make sure that the plants that you're harvesting are not being sprayed with chemicals.
Yeah.
So that is the big thing. We harvested all of this stuff from a little patch that we just mow down and let go to weed here at the Discovery Center. So we know for sure that there's never been any Roundup on it anywhere near it.
So what about dog pee?
Oh yeah,
that's a problem too.
Just wash everything.
Wash everything. Also, something we tried to do like yesterday. I found some curly dock, and I was about to harvest it, and Alix is like, I think this is too close to the sidewalk. I see dog poop right there, and so I was like, that I didn't even think about that. So
a little further.
There are things you'll learn. Obviously, wash them really well, and blanching them helps too.
Yes, puts the mind at ease.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so should we talk about some books?
Let's talk about some resources. So I mentioned Alexis, Nicole, and Tammy, if you could go ahead and put the other Instagram folks or foragers rather into the chat. There's Pascal Balder, there's Linda Black Elk, and I think that was the 3 I had mentioned.
Yeah, those are 3
awesome.
of my favorites. Linda is she's up in South Dakota, I think. So her the stuff she works with is closer to what Alexis works with a lot of Eastern species. So she's got a lot of the same plants that we do. Pascal is kind of everywhere. He goes everywhere, but he does amazing, beautiful wild food.
And if you are a ceramic artist like I am, he also digs up wild clay, like mine's natural clay, and makes pots out of it. It's really beautiful.
We need to have him visit Kansas City.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, but we got some great books.
And while you tell the folks about these books, I'm going to cut us a slice of pizza so we can show you what that looks like.
Okay, so first of all, if you haven't been to Burr Oak Woods yet, go to Burr Oak Woods. They have a group there, a wild edibles group called the Wild Ones, and they make these amazing cookbooks. They are kind of hard to, you can't order them online. You have to go in and talk to them to get one of these, but they're amazing, and they have everything from the Midwest. They've got lamb quarters, plantain, purslane, duck, all kinds of things, and cute pictures and adorable stories added into them. So there's 4 of those that cover different there's a tree one, there's berries and vines, and then there's Eat Your Wheaties, which is kind of the one that we would use for this kind of stuff. Then we have Cooking Wild in Missouri. This is available at our gift shop and through our website. And this one's really good. It goes through all kinds of things, plants, fish, mushrooms, all kinds
wild
of
game.
Wild game, yeah. And then this is the classic Wild Edibles of Missouri. This is by Jan Phillips. This is a must-have. You have to get this book first. This is the first one you got to do. And it's really, really nice. And it gives you recipes. It's got great identification tips and everything. So we made a pizza.
But real quick, before we jump into the pizza, Tammy's going to post the links to all these resources in the chat, as well as a follow-up email to you all, so you'll have access to everything.
Yeah.
All right. And now, before we take your questions, we're going to show you, here's a couple of slices. of this pizza we made. So,
Okay, yeah.
and we
Should
will
go down the
post.
list?
Okay, yeah. Okay,
What we
what all is in here?
Okay, starting at the crust.
Oh,
We
yes.
forgot to talk about the crust.
We made homemade pizza crust because we're
Yes.
bougie. And we did, again, we don't have a recipe. I know that's annoying, but that's how we roll. We used half bread flour and half cricket flour. Crickets, y'all. They're
Crickets.
delicious. They're nutty. They're ground down. They don't look like crickets, but it's a high protein alternative food source. It's the way of the future, baby. And a lot of cultures eat it. It's delicious. So don't yuck my yum. I'm into it. You gotta try it for yourself.
This is my first time trying it as a pizza crust, so we'll see how that works. So it should be really good, but it's a great way. Yeah, double your protein and triple your protein of
For
your
all,
flour.
I think it's also gluten free.
Yeah,
So I don't think it's mixed with other flours typically.
Yeah. So then the sauce.
Okay, yeah. So we did a pesto for the sauce, and we used almost everything you see here.
Everything.
Garlic mustard, dead nettle. We even found stinging nettle, which is starting to come up. We ended up eating it instead of saving it as a specimen because we wanted it in the pesto. But it's really good. Curly dock. We did henbit. We roasted some of that wild garlic
with the roots of the wild of the garlic mustard.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So this again is a kitchen sink kind of deal. And then we also, Alix is the mushroom queen, as we've mentioned before. And so she brought in some dehydrated oyster mushrooms that we rehydrated and then cooked on top of the pizza. So we're going to take a quick bite and then take some questions, and we'll describe the flavor to you all. Sorry to not be able to share with you all. Sorry. Oh my gosh.
That's so good.
Wow. That's amazing.
Doesn't that taste like pesto?
It does.
Like greener pesto?
It really doesn't taste like grass, y'all. It's really delicious. It's like,
look how beautiful too.
It tastes like garlic. It tastes like, well, there's olive oil in there.
There's garlic. It's
Kind
like
of
every
slightly
green
spinachy.
thing. Yeah, spinachy. Real
Oh, I
green.
forgot. You can also take the flowers and sprinkle them on top.
Yeah, you forgot the sprinkles. These are the purple sprinkles.
Purple sprinkles. There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Half eaten with purple sprinkles.
Nice.
All right. With all that said, let's hear your questions, y'all.
There was a lot of discussion about the cricket flour. So I will not yuck your yum, but a few people thought it was okay. But we do have some questions. Kathleen asks, so really leave them in your yard? Now that was early on when we were talking about henbit and chickweed. So let's talk about the balance there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I think there is a balance.
Yeah, there definitely is.
Agree.
Okay, so I'll tell you, we pulled these from a few beds that were very small and have these species that we know are coming up later in the year. So they're crawling over those, and like I'm thinking of the Alliaria,
the
primrose,
Missouri Union primrose bed. It's like it's like this big
and
it rocks.
flowers.
Yeah, they're more delicate.
So for those beds, you definitely want to get rid of these weeds.
Right.
But if you have like huge established forbs, grasses, anything that's like already established, big plants that have been around for a long time that don't need to be babied, we don't bother. We don't bother pulling out.
Because it does serve as a ground cover, which we talked about these different layers that you see in your garden, and it's necessary to have something taking up that space. Whether you mulch could be how you handle the
you
gaps
can
in
mulch
between.
over them.
You could also plant native ground covers like Pacra obovata, which is roundleaf groundsel, or rose verbena. Otherwise, things like this are going to come in. So it's just like deciding what you want there and what's actually
your
goals are.
Fighting, what battles.
That is for sure. So Teresa asks, so you're using the stems too? Are you using the stems as well? And that was early on when we were talking about dead nettle. I imagine dandelion stems are a whole different world.
Yeah,
but that wasn't early on.
You can't eat is the fluffy seeds and the stem of the dandelion. The rest of it is edible. clarify.
Yeah, so and because we blanched them and because they're relatively young, so because they're young, they're more tender, and because we blanched them, they're softened also. Now you wouldn't want the old hard stems, that's just like chewing on wood, right? So
Yeah, so some of these species can have old, the henbit and stuff, but I like to use, I just rip the tops off, the tender bits off the tops are typically what you're going for. Some people use like have you ever seen those like herb stripper?
yeah,
things
those are
like,
fun.
Yes,
You
those
like
work
a little hole and
perfectly.
you pull it through. And
Yes,
Mhm.
it's perfect. And
That's
it
fun.
works so nice. Just like you treat a lot of these like
an
herbs.
herb. Yeah.
Perfect. So Joe asks, does henbit's sweet flowers mean that the sugar content of the nectar is high? I know honeybees really work henbit.
Yeah,
Really
I
good
think
question.
that's what I did as a kid. I used to sit
Oh, they
around,
are sweet.
play. I was
Oh, they
in
are.
baseball and softball, but I'd just be sitting in the field picking
You're one of
flowers.
those kids.
Yeah, and I was finding snacks everywhere. All of these flowers, I think that we've talked about are edible. Too.
Tastes like a sweet pea.
Yes, don't they? They're really sweet. They
They're
have a
delicious.
even kind of like honeysuckle. If you like very carefully squeeze the end of the
Get the
flower.
little nectar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I want to point out also, by harvesting these things, you're not removing enough food resources for bees that it's going to harm them.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
Good
so
question.
don't worry
Good
about that. I mean, frankly, there are much better plants that provide nutrition for our pollinators and native insects. So don't feel bad if you're taking some of these. It's inconsequential on that scale.
Yeah, for sure. And this type of the shape of the flower too. You'll see. I don't know if you can see that.
Here.
But it's looking at that, the only bugs that can get down into that are gonna have really long tongues probably. So it's really not even for all pollinators. So don't worry about it if that's what you're worried about.
That's a great question. Great point. So Cynthia asks, is nutsedge invasive?
Nutsedges, we didn't talk about nutsedge, but yeah, nutsedges.
It is invasive.
Sorry.
You
Hold
can
on.
Not
Nutsedge
Yeah.
can't be invasive, is native. Nutsedge is native. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's true. Tammy, do you know?
I do not
Oh my
know.
God, do you see my
I know
braces?
it's prolific.
I know that's a summer plant. We can't think about that right now.
Yeah.
Is that what she meant, nutsedge? I'm not sure.
Nutsedge is what the question was.
Okay.
How about this?
It is-
How about we get back to you on that?
Before we give you an answer.
It can't. Yes, that's a very bad native plant to have. Just like Canada goldenrod, I put it in the same category.
Yeah.
So, okay. Ashley asks, if I'm in a conservation area and I find an edible invasive, would I be allowed to harvest as much as possible?
Oh, that's a great question. For a lot of conservation areas, you can harvest like what you can consume. That's kind of the rule.
idea.
Yeah, like if they don't.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So the idea behind that is kind of, it's part of it is like, so you can't take that much. So you're not really destroying.
They say personal consumption and education, but not for like financial gain. I think is typically the rule.
Okay.
So also, the thing I would be leery about, if you know 100%, like you're confident that it is, you're IDing it properly and it is an invasive, then I think it's fine to a point. But the concern is damaging other plants around it. Harvesting the wrong plant, maybe it's a native. We have a lot of really delicate ephemeral species in our woodlands this time of year. So please use caution. Don't go crazy digging up all kinds of earth and disturbing all these other great plants.
Yeah. There's a lot of
Good
native
points.
that we don't talk about because they are too precious to dig up.
Like
that we don't, because we're not talking
Well,
about
but it'd be poaching. I mean, to be frank, it's like,
yes, but yes.
it's so there's a balance. If it's a non-native invasive, you can harvest some, but
There's a better way to go about it. If you want to do a huge removal project, get in touch with the park, whoever.
get in touch with
get in touch
City
with them.
Wildlands. They do some great restoration efforts where they're removing things like garlic mustard, Sericea, Lespedeza.
Yeah, or whatever your
And,
local conservation
yeah.
group is. But yeah, that you would need to get permission to do a big removal.
Yeah. But we love the passion
Yes.
and the effort, but make
Absolutely.
sure it's organized efforts. And
Yeah,
we
no.
don't naturally.
That's a great question because we just don't know, and that's a really great question. Becky asks, I'm going to back up for a second. We have Val and Christine that are chiming in saying Nutsedge is native. Val says to Africa, and Christine says she believes it's an invasive, non-native. So
okay, we're gonna get back to you all on that when we do a little bit of research, but we have to take it out because we just don't want it in our space. So.
And that's why we do these. I mean, we learn from everybody too. Can't possibly know everything. So
definitely,
I'm so grateful.
No, obviously, I had to look up a lot of these today. And be like,
me too.
I can't remember.
But that's always the joy of it too. I say this all the time, but the thing I love about conservation and learning about our native flora and fauna is you will never know everything, and that's the joy, is learning about it and doing the research and being excited about it. So
exactly. So wait, okay, so we're going to take a couple more. Are the flowers of the garlic mustard yellow?
No, they're white.
They're white.
They're white.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe creamy, but
No, they're white.
Are they like stark white? Okay.
But we have a lot of mustards that are native to the Midwest, and some of them have yellow flowers. There's we pulled some of these. This is we have black mustard. This is not black mustard, I don't think. That's a mustard. I don't even know what it is.
The leaves are beautiful. We tried to ID it through iNaturalist, but didn't have very good luck. So
yeah, I cannot think.
But look how gorgeous that foliage is.
It's so pretty.
There's tons of plants in the mustard family. A lot of them are edible. They're really tricky to ID, so that's probably level 3 or 4.
We need a master class on
exactly. We'll have to come back to that for sure.
Yeah, master class on that, and sedges would be great.
Yes. So Bo asks, I want to plant milkweed seeds now. Will they grow and mature so the butterflies can enjoy them this summer and fall?
But have your seeds been cold stratified? So they, a lot of our native perennials need to go through a wet freeze and thaw like they do naturally with our winter season. So if they haven't been, I would say no.
Yeah, you'll have to wait till fall.
You have to wait. But this brings up, we have a really special event called Go Native happening April 23rd. I believe it's on Saturday, where we're giving away milkweed plants that we've grown in our greenhouse. We started them in at the end of December and January, and they were cold stratified for, I think, they've been living in our fridge for years. So, so they've been good to go.
Yeah. Well, we never plant anything by seed just because there's no control there. So, so I would say it's the tricky part about throwing seed out right now is the chance of it disappearing before it actually becomes a plant is pretty good. That's why we recommend sowing when if we get are we getting another snow?
That's what
okay,
they say.
If we're getting another snow,
all over it.
If there's another snow coming, your seeds still have to be stratified because it's the space between this snow and the last frost or whatever is not going to be long enough to do it. So if they're stratified, I would go throw them down before whatever storm we're having tomorrow.
Yeah, but it needs at least 30 days. So
no, I'm saying if they are stratified.
Oh, if they are stratified, yeah.
Great. And one last one. Well, we have 2 more, but we're only have time for one more. I'm so sorry. Dawn asks, do you use dandelion flowers opened or unopened? She found a recipe that says unopened.
Okay. So I'll tell you, the part of the flower that is the most tart is that outer. I don't have the outer like the green leaves that are around the outer part of underneath the flower. Yeah. So when I prepare, so if you were gonna do unopened, you could do the thing like you said with the
quick pickled capers.
Yeah, like
Black Forager has put on their social media.
You can eat them, but you want to make sure to get that the green part off. Unless, because this is really bitter.
So what about when you talked about batter and frying them?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So those are open.
They're open. They're just like the yellow flowers that are already bloomed.
Mm-hmm. So you peel them, you pull them, you just cut the end off without, like the green end off, trying to do it without like completely letting all of the flowers
fall apart.
Then you bread them and fry them.
Yum. Yeah. I'm hungry.
But you can. I don't know if the outer part is less bitter when it went like before it's open. That might be. I'm not sure. I've never
Well,
tried
because
one.
with the capers, it has the green around it.
No, I know, but that's the point. I think of like
To
the
make them kind of bitter
the
and
pickling.
pickly.
Yeah, so like have them be.
Let us
salty.
know.
Yeah.
2.0. I hear a
There's so many
2.0
things.
coming.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I want to just say one thing before we go. Alix and I were featured on MDC's podcast, Nature Boost. We're talking about spring native flowers. So please check it out if you listen to podcasts. It's our first time on a podcast and we're so excited. And I listened to it and I think we did a great job. So
Yeah. I'll
Oh,
listen to it.
undoubtedly. I'll listen to it, and we'll share that too with
Oh,
the when we send out resources. We'll share that with all of you, the link to that. Thank you, you two. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You can stay on if you want. As we wrap up, so to learn more about anything that's going on at the Discovery Center, you can go to mdc.mo.gov and search for events at the Anita B. Gorman Discovery Center or any other of the Missouri Department of Conservation centers. The Deep Root site also has many references for native plants, so hop on over there and see what more you can learn. We also have area native plant sales on our site under our events tab. So under the events tab, check those out. There are plant sales nearly every weekend now through late spring, and then picking back up in the fall too. Speaking of events, don't miss our next webinar on March 31st. This webinar will discuss the invasive Callery pear tree and how to rid our landscapes of it. Once you know what to look for, you will just see how critical getting rid of this beast is. Our expert speakers will include Matt Arndt. He's a certified forester and arborist, and Ryan Armbruster. He is the Rural Forestry Program Coordinator for Kansas. Matt Garrett, the field biologist with Johnson County Parks and Rec District, will also join for a panel discussion. This will be an incredibly informative webinar, and you can register for that at deeproots.org/webinars. And if you have missed any of our episodes, you can find them all at deeproots.org. We record and post each one. And while you're on our site, we'd be grateful if you would consider making a donation to Deep Roots as well. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you back here on April 21st as we go on the road with the Missouri Department of Conservation. Have a great afternoon and stay safe. Thank you.